I started my first business doing nutrition consulting, but eventually I got really sick of being in the gym all the time, and I realized, I really wanted to spend more time in the backcountry. What I like about our business is I'm really trying to kind of take the guesswork out of how food is made. I think it's really important for people to realize, they're literally just cooking big batches of this, dehydrating it, and then I'm going to rehydrate it. My favorites are smoked salmon chowder, dark chocolate chili, the Ethiopian dorowat, and then we also do a tomatillo rancheros, and then our last meal is our chipotle cherry chili. We want to inspire health. We want people to be healthy and happy and do the things that they want to do, and if we can help support them in that, that's intrinsically motivating to get up and do the work every day.
That is. Well, this is Brandon with Wilderness Attitude Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Another show for you from the Sheep Show here in Reno, Nevada, 2018. And I have the pleasure of having Heather Kelly sitting here with me. I listened to Heather's podcast with Gritty Bowman a while back. You'd have to research it. He's got a cool database. Just go to his website and you'll be able to pull it right up. But it was a really cool podcast for me to listen to because, there's lots of options out there in the world and things you can do yourself for eating in the backcountry. But no one that I know of in the backcountry with the personal experience and the knowledge that she has put forth the effort genuinely from her heart to give a product that is good for you and to empower you and bring you your potential in the backcountry. And so I personally have not had any of Heather Choice's meals.
We'll change that.
I had to say that, right? But, my wife has been smashing your packaroons for a couple days here, and, I'm really hoping that in your product development you're going to find something else to make in that kind of realm because I hate coconut with a passion.
I've heard that too many times.
Man, even if I get a tropical drink, I don't remember, I take a sip of it and I'm just like, I think I'm going to puke on the spot.
But
right?
you drink too much Bacardi rum one time in high school?
No, I have never, ever liked coconut. And what's funny is as I've grown up, I've really learned to enjoy a lot of foods that I didn't like before. And I have tested the waters of the coconut realm throughout the years, and it's just, it's right there with sauerkraut.
Those are two really good healthy foods.
I know, but I like cabbage in a lot of ways, but I don't like sauerkraut. And I don't know. I'm just a weird one.
That's all right. Everybody has their things with food. That's what's so fun is I get to meet people and then they spill the beans on I can't handle X, Y, Z. And
right.
I love it. It's really fun.
A lot of your flavors interest me for sure, and some of your recipes and things that you've talked about before, and they sound great. And now that they're on the WA deal, that was kind of about mid-season this year when I kind of noticed that happen for me, and I had already I really try to buy everything, late summer, but a good 6 weeks prior to hunting season. I try to make sure that I've got my totes lined with what I want, and I'm ready, and I can put a visual to my schedule on the wall and the visual to what I got, and even a month before my elk pack in, I'm like, okay, I got 4 days, and I've already got elk bag hanging in my cue sack, and then I've got deer days already hanging, and I've got, I'm a little ADD deal that I have with my organizational.
It's awesome.
Skills.
You'll have to share that system with people.
Well, yeah, it might be a little over the top for some. So I don't know. It's a little embarrassing, but I just like being that far ahead. And so then when I saw that, I'm like, okay. And I saw you guys on the Wilderness Athlete website. You guys, I should say your product. And I'm like, yeah, man. Now I'm in. Now I can start getting some. So I'm stoked.
Yeah, thank you. It's going to be a good year for us.
It is going to be a good year for you. I watched your quick start, or what was it? What's that?
Kickstarter,
thank you. I watched your Kickstarter stuff, and I have followed along through your journey because I'm an entrepreneur, right? And I love seeing how when someone has a dream and they have a real passion for something, they educate themselves and then they put it to work and they produce something that is valuable to a community. And I the other part that I really liked, and we'll go back through this, and I want to hear from you on all these things, but you really primarily came out of a backcountry backpacking stance, right? And then watching after you got your first packaging run, and in listening to you talk about that and how excited you were and how thankful you were. You're so excited and so happy you're crying, and it's amazing stuff, passionate and good. And then the next thing you know, people are starting to realize this can work for us in this hunting world, right? And then you get drawn into this segment, a real male predominant industry, but you were welcomed with open arms because people have been dying. Maybe not dying, but they have been begging for your type of product and the results it can give them, right? And the different style in which you make it, too, across the board, and what you're being compared against.
Yeah.
And then to see your growth into your new office and all your new, and how you were, So I pretty much follow you on Instagram.
Oh, okay.
So I see your pictures, I see this and the office stuff, and check this out. And now I'm so excited about this, and and that's cool. And then to finally get to meet you today brings me full circle.
Yeah,
and
that's why the show is fantastic.
I learned a lot about the sheep show. This is my first one, and the listeners have heard. But I mean, the family aspect of this show is much different than the other ones I've been at. Like I mentioned earlier, some of the other ones I've been on are kind of bro fests, right? But this one's different.
It's a good feel. It definitely reminds me of the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Rendezvous, just a little bit bigger, but it's still a tight enough community that you feel like you're with family, which is nice.
So take us back. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people know your history of being a rower and some of that. Maybe they don't, but give us a quick run through as to how you got to the point of making a decision that this is something you wanted to do for a living. I mean, specifically Heather's Choice, right?
Gosh, I don't know how I got here. Are you kidding me?
I just rode my way to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my first business doing nutrition consulting and specifically eating psychology. And I loved it because I got to work with pretty high caliber athletes, teaching them about macronutrients and having a healthy relationship with food. And I loved it. It was super satisfying and it was fun. But eventually I got really sick of being in the gym all the time. And I realized, I really wanted to spend more time in the backcountry. And I did a couple of trips in the Grand Canyon, and they were both solo hikes. And that's when I was having to really be conscious of how much weight I was carrying. So I was going by myself into the desert, carrying like a ridiculous amount of water. And it just became so apparent that all of this nutrition coaching that I was doing was valuable, but there wasn't a product that I could actually recommend that fit into what I was recommending or the way that I wanted to eat as well. So, just a little small 5-tray dehydrator in me, started playing around with it, and it became an absolute obsession because it's so fun.
Like almost unhealthy?
No. I ate so many banana chips and so many apple chips.
But I mean, how many? That's all I wanted. Let's stop right there because I really want to know about the garage days.
Yeah.
Right?
They're still happening. So.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Really?
We are so in that phase of, I think every business is. Like, you talk to the wilderness athlete folks, and they're like, okay, yeah, who wants to, fill these orders tonight because we got to get them out the door. And we're still in that, too, where we've got to stay up late stickering bags and all that stuff. But when I first started, I was just dehydrating stuff and kind of playing around. And then my dad, of course, ate everything that I made. So I would actually put everything in little quart-sized Ziplocs and hand draw my labels and then mail them off to my dad. And he was like, well, of course, this is the best thing I've ever eaten. So right. I think having that cheerleader early on was really helpful.
Yeah. Was there anybody else other than him that was that rock in your movement forward?
Yeah, I had a buddy of mine who I did some trips with, and I brought some Heather's Choice early days products, and he was super encouraging and was just like, you have to do this. And, of course it was a fantasy at the time of, how cool would this be to like get to dehydrate food all the time and make money doing it.
Right.
And then he finally sat me down in the summer of 2014, and I still look up to this guy, and everything he says is gold. And he said, "What do you need to make this happen?" And I'm like, "Well, I need a bigger dehydrator." He's like, "Well, let's go get one." Mm-hmm. And so we went down to Cabela's and bought a commercial grade.
Right, one of the big stainless steel ones.
It looks like a wine cooler.
Looks like a wine cooler.
Yeah, it's a pretty good size dehydrator, like $900. It was a huge deal.
Right. And
so he just said, "This is what you need, and here's how you get a business license. Here's how you get an EIN number," stuff that I just wasn't really privy to. Mm-hmm. And then I launched my website, and it's just been a ride from there.
I mean, how'd you feel walking out of Cabela's with that box, right?
Oh, dude, just like grinning ear to ear.
Yeah, like, man, this is so awesome, right? I mean, I do that now. Even when I go get a new meat grinder or something, I'm just like, I'm gonna grind so much meat.
Totally.
It's so much fun. Toys, right?
It's all toys. Now my toys are just a little more expensive.
Yeah, is that the crazy part? Yeah, wait, it just keeps getting that way. And then as you guys kids, then it just keeps doing it too. It's insane. So you get this new dehydrator, you get focused on how to do all the government side of it right and do everything legal, and you get launched, and you get this website built, and you get on this roller coaster ride. What was one of your biggest loops in the roller coaster thus far, where you went upside down all around and thought maybe you were going to puke at some point on the ride?
Gosh, it still happens. It's like every day. You know the feeling where you're high on life and someone tells you how much they love you, and you're like, yes, I'm on it. I'm killing it. And then someone tells you that you suck, and you drop to the bottom of the roller coaster, and you're like, no, I can't do this anymore.
They're kicking you while you're down there too, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So is there an instance where that, in the ride so far? I mean, we all know the ride's far from over for you, but was there anything that sticks out in your mind like that?
Yeah, like I say, there's just picking one of them. So,
that the whole startup, the whole packaging startup, that had to have been a loop, right? Because you're trying to fundraise. It's like, you're almost there, right? You can see it. And there's days like you got to be laying there in bed some nights going to sleep going, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We're not going to make it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Just even we just got our own kitchen. It's taken me 3 years to finally get settled in our own space in Anchorage. Mm-hmm. Because it seems like, looking back at it, it would have been so smart to fundraise and write a business plan and save money and get investors early. All those things you would do if you knew.
Yeah, but you know what though? But you're the true definition of an entrepreneur that didn't do it the conventional model way. And that may be what sets you apart and sets you above the bar.
Sure.
Right? Because, look, passion and honesty, your transparency, the love that you put in your food, that's what's got you here. A standard business model doesn't, you put that standard, you put that model in front of a banker, you put that model in front of an investor, they don't have it. They don't see it, right?
Yep.
Maybe they'll see it. Maybe if you can sell it and you can get that feeling to come across, but that's hard. That's the hard part. We believe. Getting someone else to believe is really hard. Mm-hmm. And so maybe the route you went, and you asked the general world to believe in you. And sometimes in this day and age, the best things come from people who are just willing to take a chance.
Yeah.
To just invest in something that they feel is right. Where sometimes bankers and all these people, man, they're just too number oriented, and they miss it. Mm-hmm. They miss the chance. And you gave the general public a chance to reach out there and do it. And I remember when you were fundraising that, and it was, I can't remember, there was levels you had. Mm-hmm. And it was like, I just don't have the money to even go in that level. And I was just like, it's probably a poor excuse from my side, to be honest. But when you got 9 kids at home and you hide the money that you spend on hunting.
Yep.
Sometimes it makes doing some of the things or buying some of the things you want a little more difficult.
For sure. Yeah, that whole Kickstarter experience was so difficult, but so gratifying too, because it really validated what we were trying to do. Our fundraising goal was really high, because a lot of times people will say, okay, just set the threshold at 10 grand, just so that you clear that hurdle. Because if you don't hit that, if you don't hit your fundraising goal, you don't get any of the money. And so I knew for us, we didn't just need 10 grand. It wasn't going to work for me to say, let's raise 10, but shoot for 50. I knew we needed close to 50,000 to pull this off. So I set the bar there, and it took us up to the last 3 days to clear it. So I think that's probably been a theme for me in the business, is I set the bar really high and then either don't hit it, run smack into it, and knock it over.
Right.
It's not too often that we clear that hurdle, but that striving for it is what keeps us going.
And you mentioned that, I think, if I recall, that you're like, I truly believe in what I'm making, and I set the bar high for my food. I've set the bar high for the packaging I want. I've set the bar high for my fundraising.
Yep.
Because this is either going to be the right way or not at all.
Totally.
Right? I mean, that's just flat out putting it out there.
Yeah.
And risking it and really believing in it, and that's killer. So now that you've reached a good level of success, I mean, you're far from the end of your ride like we talked about, but as you begin to grow and you begin to hire people to help you do what you're doing, how are you going to ensure that your product remains consistent? And how are you going to ensure that that food is still being made with the same passion and love that you've given it all this time from your first 5-tray dehydrator?
It's pretty cool. So I started making the products myself and then very quickly realized I couldn't keep up with it. It was physically impossible for me to make enough food for a guy like you who says, I need 40 dinners, 40 breakfasts, and 40 snacks for this hunt. And so I immediately went to outsourcing, which is kind of the typical model for food products, is that you hire a co-packer or co-manufacturer. And over the last 3 years, we've worked with 3 different co-manufacturers, and managing that and getting the quality from those different entities has been really, really, really hard. And I have made some huge mistakes with that along the way that have been super costly and detrimental. And that's where moving into our own kitchen and now having my boyfriend Brad and I as the ones making the product, and then training people, this is exactly the way we want you to place the product on the dehydrator trays.
I mean, that much micromanagement needs to happen, right?
Absolutely. And now that we have that opportunity to do everything in-house, I think that our product quality is going to escalate exponentially over the next couple of years, simply because we care, and then we get people into the business who care just as much as we do, versus I just think co-manufacturing or co-packing is very dangerous, because you don't even know who's making the food that day. And you don't know if they're having a bad day. You don't know if they're putting good energy or bad energy into the food. And the quality control aspect of it has just been too hard for me to do from a distance. So I think that right now we're just on the right path towards bringing people into the company, getting them just as excited about our mission as we are, and then training them to do this really, really well. So it's a cool question, because I've had it a lot this weekend where people are saying, oh, well, if your business is growing, how are you going to maintain quality control? And honestly, again, bringing it all in-house, even though we're going to be making way more product because the business is growing, it's just going to be so much better than it's ever been.
And how hard is it for you to find employees? I mean, I own my own business.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, I know I can get one good employee for every 6 I hire, right? What's that like in Anchorage? Is it different? I mean,
it is different. So I'm like the luckiest person you'll ever meet, though. So anybody I've hired has literally walked through my front door.
No ads, no newspaper ad, word of mouth.
Word of mouth. We just recently ran a Craigslist ad for a food production person, and sure as shit, the girl that we hired is a AT thru hiker.
Really?
Those are the type of people who literally just walk through the front door when you need them.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've been really, really fortunate. And Additionally, in Alaska, the economy is a little bit suppressed because of the drop in the cost of oil.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's all these people who are super duper qualified, high level, want to live in Alaska, but there's no jobs for them in their industry anymore. So we have like this pretty cool group of people to pick from that the reason that they live in Alaska is because they love it. They want to play there. And so if we can give them the opportunity to work in the outdoor industry, it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah, totally. I could see that. Because, if they've eaten food and playing in the backcountry, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
so they have their firsthand getting to be a part of something that they can get behind.
Yep.
Right? And your mission statement, and what you're trying to achieve, it doesn't seem hard for anybody who's an outdoor enthusiast to get behind, right?
Absolutely. And what I like about our business is I'm really trying to kind of take the guesswork out of how food is made. Like a lot of times you buy a food product and you're like, I don't know where this came from. I don't know how they made this. Like it's a manufactured food.
Right.
And I'm sure that a lot of people would criticize this, but I really want to always be transparent in how we make our stuff, because I think it's really important for people to realize, like, oh, they're literally just cooking big batches of this, dehydrating it, and then I'm going to rehydrate it. And there's no other, like, funny business in the manufacturing of that food. And I think that's cool for our employees, too, that they get to see how simple our process is, and it makes it easier for them to get behind it.
Your process, you say simple, but at the same time, though, simple doesn't translate to the price point that you're getting for a package of food. Now, for the listener, tell them how and where your products are coming from, because that plays an important role in the price point of your packaging of any given item, right?
Yep, absolutely. So one of our best-selling meals is our smoked sockeye salmon chowder, and it's the one that I take on every single trip. I love it. So we have to bulk buy our ingredients, like our potatoes and our peas and our carrots, and then all that stuff has to come up to Alaska. So it gets consolidated in Washington, and then it gets on a boat and it sails up to Anchorage. And obviously that price per pound is like the make or break for us.
Right.
It could be as low as 11 cents a pound, or it could be $1 a pound on every single one of those ingredients.
And that's always on a ship. It always comes on a ship.
Yeah.
It's never cheaper to put it on a semi or
No.
cheaper to fly it?
No, it just barges up.
The barge is where it's at. Okay.
Yeah. And so that's part of that product. And then we also buy these trimmings from a seafood processor in Ninilchik, Alaska. It's about 4 hours south of us. And this company that we work with, they make a cold smoked lox, and it's the best smoked fish you've ever had. And the guy who makes it is 82 years old.
What?
He's just like, he's awesome. He's just the quintessential Alaskan pilot who has been smoking fish for 40 years, and he just loves it. So we went to them and said, hey, on every fillet, you actually trim off about 25% of it that you can't use for your cold smoked lox. So what do you guys do with the trimmings? And they're like, well, we've been trying to find a value add product and a way to sell it, but we haven't found anything. So we started taking that and then dehydrating it and then incorporating it into our smoked salmon chowder, and it is phenomenal. So it was a really cool partnership for me, because we were able to not only provide this family-run operation with an outlet for their smoked salmon trimmings, but it's resulted in our best-selling dinner, and in my opinion, one of the best ones.
Where were you when you ding, like, I need to go to this place? Who you thought of that? Who thought of that?
No, again, I'm just like the luckiest person ever. My food safety guy was like, oh, you need to meet Art. And I'm like, yeah, I'll go meet Art. And turned out just to be like the sweetest family I've ever met, and now they're good friends of ours.
Excellent.
Yeah, so you know how it is. It's all who you know and who you meet and who you follow up with.
It is. That's a fact. And, and so now that's a cool story. But what about the bison?
Yeah, so we have been doing the dark chocolate chili made with bison in Colorado for the last 2.5 years. So that's one of those co-packing relationships. And so they get the grass-fed bison from Colorado. And so that fits into my ideal with the business, which is that whenever you're dehydrating a product, you're getting it from as close to the source as possible. Because when you dehydrate food, you take out about 75% of the water weight. So the transport of dehydrated food obviously takes a lot less gas and a lot less energy than shipping fresh products.
Mm-hmm.
So when we move into this kitchen, we'll be getting bison from Delta in Alaska. And so that's kind of how I hope that our company evolves and grows, is that we constantly find more local sources depending on where we're dehydrating food.
Yeah. I mean, go through the list. You got the sockeye salmon, you got the bison. Give us some more of those entrees that you have there, because they're all lean, good for you meats to begin with, right? I mean, and I think that was kind of the angle in on the hunting world, right? I mean, because that's what we're trying to achieve.
Totally.
That's why we're out there. So why would we want to be eating anything other than that?
Yeah,
right?
For sure. We also do an Ethiopian dorawat, which is a North African curry. So my favorites are smoked salmon chowder, dark chocolate chili, the Ethiopian dorawat. It's like very rich and gritty, and it's so good. And then we also do a tomatillo rancheros, which is a Mexican-inspired dish, and that has venison, and the dorawat has quail. And then our last meal is our chipotle cherry chili, which, again, it's just like this very bright, flavorful chili with quail. So this year we're going to release a chicken mole, which is going to be awesome, with pasture-raised chicken, right?
That's
going
in
to
my
be
wheelhouse.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then we're going to do a North African peanut stew, which will be great. And then we used to do a shepherd's pie, and we want to bring that back with grass-fed beef. So got some good stuff on the horizons.
They're all good. See, I'm not a salmon guy, so I've never gone that route. But everything else you have is right up my alley. I love the ethnic twists, and I love the different things, and then the bold flavors. You know, chipotle is a bold pepper. Mole is a bold, whether it's green or traditional, red chocolate mole or whatever. I mean, you can ask my wife. If I go to somewhere, everybody's all, the relleno is, it's all about the relleno, right? If they have a great relleno, then everything else is going to be good. And I'm like, there's some truth to that, but I'm the guy that says if you got a good mole, the rest of it is good.
Yeah.
Because if you can make something that has 30-plus ingredients in it and make it balance and make it work, then you kind of know what you're doing.
Totally.
And I was a chef for 16 years.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yep. I was a chef for 16 years before
You've been holding out on me.
Got into the trucking world, and so flavor means a lot to me. The balance, consistency, the textures throughout, and those variances are important to me. And of course, like we all know, that first smell and that first look is whether I'd say 99% of the people in the world, if you don't have them on those first two things, they ain't going to like it.
Totally.
It doesn't matter how good it is. If it doesn't look appealing and it doesn't smell, the first smell isn't right for them, then they're out.
Totally.
They'll eat it once, but they won't come back.
Yeah.
And I think that's the consistency part of it is, not even to put you in the same comparison, but when I was a young chef, I had a young cook, I had a chef tell me, look, you'll make everything on this line exactly how I've showed you. You cannot change it. Consistency is king. And he'd be like, even if you go down the street to McDonald's, you eat at that McDonald's or you eat at one in China, it's the same Big Mac.
Yeah.
They don't change it. That is the same consistency we need to have from table to table. Not country to country, but table to table, plate to plate. It has to be exactly the same. If I catch you changing anything, you're out. I won't hesitate to fire you on the spot. I was like, okay.
That's so helpful for me to hear because, like you say, it feels so micromanaging, and that is not my style. Like, I don't even, when I cook food, I don't measure anything in my home.
That's her. Callie doesn't measure anything either, but, like, I have a Bible. I have a Bible of things, and I literally, even stuff that I cooked for 10 years of my life, I know exactly what it is. I still go back and look, yeah, it is a teaspoon. And she doesn't, Callie doesn't measure anything. And she just kind of, I say, well, how much is that? And she's like, well, I don't know. I put about, some in my hand.
Yep, that's how
and I'm
I
like,
cook.
well, like how much in your hand? Well, that depends. So was your hand flat? Or was your hand cupped? Because that's the difference between a teaspoon and a tablespoon. And I've had chefs teach me that way. And they tell me, you have to cup your hand. And then it needs to be this size. That's a tablespoon. If you do it flat, then that's a teaspoon. And so, but she won't ever, she's just like, I don't know. I don't know.
That's
I don't know.
funny.
I don't know. She's like, I don't know. Well, I'm like, yeah, but it tastes the same every time you make it. It's the same. I know. But will you write it down? No, because I'm not going to measure it.
Yep.
You can cook with me, and you can look at what it looks like in the pot, and you need to emulate it. Do it. And I'm just like, no, you could have never worked for me.
Yeah.
This wouldn't have worked.
See, but that's why we need multiple people in companies, because I'll make it once. Sure, I'll write it down, but I won't make it the same way again. So I need someone like you that I can be like, need you to ensure that every time this batch is made, it's exactly the same.
And, you get it down to the point of where we used to do, I had a friend in our kitchen I had a friend of mine that decided to do a dry spice thing, right? So he did, like dry spices to make salsa or make guacamole or do all these different things or dressings. And, he had a huge line. And so he convinced me to let him use our kitchen to do it, because he was doing it in his house, and then health department and all this.
Yeah.
They got all freaked out, and and it's so. But he literally measured everything with weight by weight.
Yeah.
So he had these awesome scales, and everything was scaled out, and it was like, and then that the only thing I could ever relate that to is guys that make their own ammo, right? They weigh it, because it has to be perfect. And that's how his was. It was so consistent. It was insane.
That's awesome.
It was tedious, no doubt about it. But he was extremely successful because no matter what, it was always the same. And he would make it simple. He would say, you'll add this to a 30-ounce container of sour cream. So you buy that, and that's how much you'd make. It wasn't, okay, we want you to do a quarter cup of mayonnaise and a quarter cup of sour cream and, whatever. No, he would take all the measurement out and just say, you just buy that packaging, you dump it in, you stir it, boom.
Yep,
done.
there you go.
And so it worked. But, yeah, you need something like that. In my opinion, I think that that to have that consistency across the board, and even when I went into San Diego and opened up 3 different Spanish restaurants there for a gentleman, it's like we had to ensure that everything in those restaurants were being made the same, and we did that all the way down to the point of where we rented a big facility in Miramar, and we basically produced all of the food through cryovac and cryostasis in some ways, whether it could be frozen or not, and it had time days. I'd make paella to a finishing point to where basically instead of paella taking 45 minutes to be finished or to be made in-house, or 50 minutes, it could be at your table in 20, because we took out, 2/3 of the cooking time in the pre-process. So then I had to label all this stuff and decide, okay, so it's going in the freezer for 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day, 5 days, 6 days, 7 day, or we're going to hold it at 45 degrees or 42 degrees, or 42, and then we did 40, and we did 38 on the edge of going too cold in 1 day, 2 days. It was this huge process. It cost a ton of money to do this research. And we ended up getting to the point where we were throwing out 3-star quality into a place where a finishing kitchen no bigger than this WA booth was feeding 300 covers a night, because it was coming in, they cut open in the pan, finishing processes, a little bit more fish stock, 20 minutes. You had pie. Nobody knew that it was pre-made food in a facility somewhere else that was coming in and being finished for you in a place that seemed like it was, a 5-star resort.
Yeah, we need to get you up to Alaska just to teach us how to run a kitchen, because that's not my background, and I think that's been just a real steep learning curve, figuring out how do you bulk make paella. I'd be dumbfounded.
I did a real bulk paella once. I have to tell the story just because it's there.
Yeah.
But the 96 Super Bowl, I owned a restaurant called Altos in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm a part owner of it. And we had a paella pan that was 12-foot round made and about 6 inches deep. And we put gas barbecues in a certain scenario to where we could put this pan on there. And then I basically made a paella to serve 2,000 people. All the high execs of the NFL, and Hootie and the Blowfish was there. I'm kind of dating myself probably, but it was 96.
So cool.
96 Super Bowl in Phoenix, Arizona, yeah. And to the point of where we're making paella and we're stirring it with plastic oars.
Yep.
And doing all this stuff. And it was like, I can't remember, it was 350 pounds of shrimp, 400 and some odd pounds of clams. You know, I mean, it was just this epic, huge paella, but it wasn't even close to the world record.
Still, that's incredible.
You know, but it was super cool.
That's where you need to come up to Alaska.
Yeah.
We'll make 2,000 servings of paella, and we'll dehydrate it, and we'll send it out with people in the field, and they will love you for it.
See if they dig it.
Oh, they will totally dig it.
Paella is yummy.
Yeah, paella, jambalaya. I need to find some recipes that aren't as spicy. That is like the number one complaint we get from people is that the food is too spicy. And I'm the girl who will put jalapenos and hot sauce on my tacos and just can't get enough,
heat.
Right?
Yeah, I want a red heat. I want a green heat.
Oh my gosh. So I need to really think hard about how we can come up with some different recipes that aren't so bold and spicy and in your face.
Yeah, I mean they can be rich and they can be, you know, they can be rich and yummy and satisfying and, you know, and not be that way. But see, I'm a bold, spicy guy, so it's right up my alley, you know. And sometimes that's the hard part, right? You make what you're passionate about and what you want to eat, and sometimes you got to listen to feedback and do that. And you'll figure it out. I'd be happy to help you.
Yeah,
I'd be happy to help
That'd be really fun.
So some of the other things I wanted to talk to you about is growing up in Alaska. I mean, you grew up in Alaska. I've had people on the podcast before that have grown up there, that have transplanted there, and you know you grew up in a time as a young girl there where it was really that remote last frontier. I mean, it's still that, but not quite the same, I don't imagine, as when you were a kid. And did you grow up in Anchorage?
We're just south of Anchorage. So I think when my grandparents came up in the 50s, I think that's when it was still very much the last frontier. Like, there's pictures of my grandma sitting on a log, like, with curlers in her hair, doing her makeup. She was a banker in, I think, St. Louis. And then my grandpa got the crazy idea, I'm going to get 10 acres in Alaska. Let's go. And it was $250 for 10 acres back in the 50s. And they built this log cabin, and that's still the house that we live in today in Bird Creek.
You live in that cabin?
Well, it's now a house, but it started out as a log cabin. Yeah.
That 3 generations down? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it's fun. So I think that when my dad was growing up there, you know, he was born in 55. He didn't have electricity till he was 11. He didn't have a phone till he was 18. And so that's pretty cool to have that history and hear his stories of growing up in Alaska. I feel like mine's been pretty tame. Yours is pretty tame compared to his, right? Yeah.
Well, so where does so you mentioned a few recipes that you're coming up with in the new facility. What else is new for Heather? Not Heather's Choice. What's new for you? What's coming for you that's not business related?
Sure. Gosh, I think I just turned 30, so I feel like I'm suddenly becoming all wise.
You're like an adult now.
Yeah, I'm trying to be an adult. And I think I'm trying to figure out what my 5-year plan would be and how I'm going to pull off getting back out on more trips. You know, it's keeping that balance between working really hard in your business, but then getting to still go do the things that, you know, kind of feed your soul. So I've got some pretty big international travel goals that I want to pull off, and I would like to spend more time in, you know, the Southwest eating mole and enchiladas and all of that stuff. Just do some more desert trips. So I'm hoping that in the coming years I can get the business to the point where everybody knows what their role is and we're operating as this well-oiled machine so that I could go out and do more pack rafting trips, more backpacking, and stay really connected with that. Because even this year I got to do a solo trip in the Grand Canyon in the fall, and it's almost like going back to, I want to say, like the homeland for me. Like just even getting down to the Colorado River and spending time down there feeds me on like a totally different level, and then I can come out of there feeling like completely connected to why I do this or what my mission is or what I want to do more of. So I'd like to do just a lot more trips.
I got to get down there. My dad's 80, and just when he was here a few months ago said to me, you know something I want to do, son? I said, what's that? He's like, I want to hike down in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you shitting me?
You're like, now? Why now?
You're freaking 80 years old. Are you kidding me? And he's all, oh, what? And he puts on his Marine chest. What? You know, like, what, you think I can't do it? And I said, No. He's like, I want to hike down in there, and I want to hike out. And I said, how about this? How about we hike down in there and we stay there like a day
Yeah,
or
it'd be
two,
fun.
so you can recover. He's
Yep.
like, F off, right? So, but I'm just like, and I'm like, that. How cool is that? That I got my dad, and he's like, well, we can do it. You got packs, and you got stuff, and I mean, you got everything we need, don't you? And I'm like, yeah, I do have everything we need.
That's
he's like,
fun.
well, what's stopping us? And I said, well, let's plan it out. I mean, we want to do it when it's warm. I don't have enough 4-season gear for you, but we can do it when it's warm, but not too hot, because you surely don't need to be, hiking the rim at 80 when it's 100 degrees or 120 degrees out, right? That's not a good idea either. So he's like, well, all right, I'm going to look at it. I'm going to try to figure it out. I said, you do that. He's like, let's sit down, let's figure that out.
Awesome.
That'd be pretty cool. And that's going to be neat for me, because my mom bought a dehydrator in the 70s, which I still have. That's the only dehydrator I use still to this day. It still runs, still works. And it's a microwave door open looking one with 6 or 7 or 8 trays that go in it. And
what are you making there?
Square. Mostly for me, jerky.
Yeah.
That's really about it. I don't utilize that thing nearly. I mean, my mom bought that, and she dehydrated everything she did on her raft trip in the Grand Canyon. So they hiked 10 miles or so. How far is it from the south rim to the north rim?
Gosh.
And is that even raftable?
So
it used to be, I think, right? Or is it still?
Maybe they went from Phantom Ranch down, because if they hiked into the Grand Canyon and then rafted.
It sounded to me like she went upriver to raft it back down or something like that. Or maybe she went along the river and then just kept on going down. I don't recall, but she dehydrated everything in that. I mean, when I was younger, I had dehydrated bananas and this and that, and all these different things. And then when I started hunting 8 years ago and started making jerky and doing things, it was one of those things where she's like, well, I'm not using that thing anymore. You should take it. Use
nice.
it. And so I've done a few things here and there, and I've done some fruit and some other things for my kids and whatnot, but I'm way behind the curve in that world of doing more of that myself and doing that. And I know it's simple. It is simple, but time. It's time. Dehydrating takes a long time. Well, just overnight, right? I mean, you just got to cook something, and depending on what you're drying out, it's really not that long.
Still, and that's why for our business, we try to give away as many recipes as we can for the people who are the DIYers. Mm-hmm. And then there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, I have the dehydrator, I've got the recipes, I would love to do this, and I don't have the time.
Well, it is my hashtag wild goal of 2018 to, 1, make every recipe in volume 1 and 2 of those books this year, and to get engaged in a healthier eating on the mountain. And whether I have the time for myself or utilizing your product, but my whole family has decided, well, me and my wife have decided that our family is going to eat cleaner.
Nice.
And my kids are not real gung-ho about the idea. What's left in Pop-Tarts and chips and cereal and whatever garbage that's in the pantry is all there is.
Yep.
When that's gone, it's gone.
Can I ask what the motivator is? Because it's been really fun to walk around here, and there's been a lot of people, when I try to talk to them, I try to never talk at people about nutrition, just like being really inquisitive.
Even though you're fully educated enough to do so.
I try to keep my mouth shut. But I'm really curious, like, what's the instigator for wanting to eat healthier? Like,
well, for me,
why would you bother?
Well, for me, I've been on a journey of getting my health and my life back and my body back and everything for about 2.5 years since I first met Chris Denham and wanting to, I was a local trucker for 10 years at that point, and I was carrying 35 more pounds than what you see here, and even now I'm overweight, and so I just went through this process and did all this, and I've got to a certain point, and then through ebb and flow, you kind of revert back to old habits and this and that, and sometimes the old habits are just because they're in the cupboard.
Yep.
And for me, I want to eat healthier. I want to be cleaner. More people that I surround myself with who do that have a better mental clarity, have just a better, I'm 46 years old. If I'm going to make a change, it should have been a long time ago, but if I'm going to do it, I got to do it now.
Totally.
You know, and my wife is seeing the changes for me, and so she's slowly rounded and supported that and seen that, and she's doing her first 28-day Paleoist challenge.
Nice.
Started this month, and so, you know, it just felt like the right time, because if me and her don't do it together, then it's not going to happen in my house. And when you're looking at these kids and seeing the rates of diabetes, and you're seeing all these different things, and you know damn well, I've known damn well that the shit that I'm buying for my kids is not good. I've known that. You know, but like I say, if you don't have if the leaders of the house aren't on the same page, then it's not going to happen.
Yep.
The way it needs to happen. And so I think that we both are beginning to value our age and the possibility that maybe some grandchildren might be coming at some point.
Ooh.
And, you know, and that you want to be able to get up off the floor, right? I mean, I want to be able to take my kids backpacking and camping and fishing and hunting. And, well, I don't know. I mean, I still just want to be able to walk out into the park and fly a kite. And, you know, I want to be able to protect my family. And I want to be able to do what's asked of me when it's asked of me, you know, and you can't do that when you're overweight. You can't do that when your mind is dirty. You can't do that when your gut health isn't right. You can't do that when your knees hurt and your ankles hurt because you're overweight and you're doing, you know what I mean? There's a certain framework that your God gave you, and you got to figure out how to stay there, and you got to put in the work. And I think that really I've noticed, and I'd have to say over the last 2.5 years, that I've had to work harder because I didn't do the foundation right of eating better.
Sure.
I mean, surely I was taking vitamins and doing this and doing that and eating cleaner, but I tend to just only eat cleaner when I want to put in the heart of my training for Train to Hunt for 3 months.
Yep.
Not year-round. You know? So it needs to be that year-round lifestyle. And I think that my motivator is, you know, I don't know if I really nailed the motivator specifically, I guess.
No, I think it was it's clear that it's very passionate. So there's some very intrinsic motivation. It's not just, oh, well, the Train to Hunt event is coming up and I got to get my act together. It's like, no. This impacts me every single day. And I think that that's something that I wish more people could grasp, is just how much nutrition impacts you on every single day. Every single hour, every single step you take is impacted by the food that you eat. And I think that sometimes that's hard to see, that it's not people's fault that they don't know. They just haven't been exposed to it yet.
Yeah.
No one's been like, hey, have you ever thought about blah, like eating more protein in the morning and seeing how that makes you feel? So I think that'll be kind of a longer term goal for me, is how do I inspire people to, you know, do what you just did. Decide, I'm going to do this and I'm going to benefit from it and I'm going to love every second of it.
Yeah, I'm going to embrace it. You know, because far too often, a prime example is I have no problem spending money for the best super unleaded I can get, even down to the point of not even using a hose that's multi-serviced with different fuels. I will seek out a super unleaded pump that has its own hose because I don't want somebody's leftovers in the hose. And I will do that in order to find the best optimum fuel to put in my Harley. But I won't do that for myself. I mean, how asinine is that? I mean, really? I don't care much about myself?
That's what's going on here. People will spend all the money in the world on, you know, the gear, but not food.
But they won't.
People don't spend money on food.
Yeah, but they won't work on the vehicle that's taking them to the top of that mountain to find that sheep, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's crazy, isn't it?
So yeah, it's not clear to me how to clearly communicate that to people in such a way that it's compelling. Because, old habits die super hard. But with people like Ryan and Kenton, just talking to them yesterday, it's like we all know that people need health and fitness and mindset, and they can't get enough of it. So how do we deliver that to our audiences?
That's right.
It's going to be really fun to keep that as the goal. Like, we want to inspire health. We want people to be healthy and happy and do the things that they want to do. And if we can help support them in that, then that's intrinsically motivating to get up and do the work every day.
That is. What's your heartbeat on North America right now? Do you think in a whole that people are starting to figure this out a little bit and yearn for that better food choices? I mean, you kind of think so, maybe because the whole gluten-free thing kind of kicked it off a little bit, maybe. I mean, because a lot of people, eat gluten-free, and it's like did those marketing strategies, are they beginning, the big players, is it starting to change that, do you think, or no?
I mean, I like to be optimistic, so I'd love to be like, yeah, of course, things are going in the right direction. They always are. Like, I know that, and I think there's just a long ways to go. Mm-hmm. Once again, I think that the way our food is produced and how, like I said before, how separated we are from that, like, I think that's a huge problem, because then people, they don't want to spend the money because they have no appreciation for how that food got to them in the first place. Mm-hmm. Like, for us this year, we hatched and raised and butchered our own chickens, and like that was a freaking 3 or 4 month process, and how much time and effort and money and food and everything that went into that. And so then it really helps bring it into perspective when you go to the grocery store and you're going to buy a whole chicken for $5. And it's like, whoa, like that's crazy that you can get it for that price, because it should be a $25 bird, right, knowing how much effort went into that.
Right.
So I feel like that's a piece that's still really missing, is just that disconnect, which I think hunters appreciate more than anybody, of the effort that goes into bringing your own food home, and then how much more appreciation you have for it. Mm-hmm. And I think that just needs to be a bit more global, that we have that appreciation for where our food comes from, why it matters that it's largely unprocessed, mm-hmm, and then what it does for us. What kind of fuel does it give us, and why? Why do we need that type of fuel? Mm-hmm. So.
How much of your future budget this year is going to go into educating people of that very fact?
That's a great question.
Because when you're looking at your food and who it's compared to and the price points it's compared to, I mean, you have to educate people in that point of how your food was developed and how it was brought about, right? I mean, you have to educate people as to why they should buy your food.
Yeah.
So do you have an idea of that?
No, and that's why this weekend has been so powerful for me, because it's reminded me, we get stuck in our own little circles, and I'm like, oh yeah, everybody knows to eat like XYZ PDQ. No.
Right.
People don't know that, and it makes me appreciate a lot more why people look at our stuff and they see that it's twice as expensive, and they don't appreciate it because they don't know why grass-fed meat matters. They don't know why wild-caught matters.
Exactly.
All of that stuff. And so that is the big dilemma for me is, okay, am I being of service by producing this high quality of food, or would I be more of service to just focus on the education piece? But I think it has to be both, because once people do feel better and they are eating healthier, then we want to be that solution for them when they're headed out into the field for potentially the most important weeks of their year.
Yeah, because, I mean, we can do all this stuff getting ready for hunting, and then the choices we had before didn't fit with the choices we've made for the whole year to get here.
Yeah, totally.
Not at all, right? And so, yeah, I'm curious. I look forward to seeing how you're going to educate people and how you're going to make that happen, because I think that education is 90% of your sale. Mm-hmm. I think that it's that once they eat it, they're going to be hooked. You know that what you make is good. It's excellent. It's good for them. It tastes great. It's made with love. You know that. It's just a matter of getting them to get it in their hands, right?
Totally.
And sometimes that education piece, I think, is the ultimate part of it. I mean, I'm not telling you what to do.
No, I'm curious.
But I just think that education and food is where a lot of time has to be spent.
Yeah, and I was going to say that for you, as somebody who obviously knows a thing or two about marketing, what would you say if you were like, Heather, if you could do one thing this year?
I think your products stand alone and stand for themselves. Like I said, I think that they are what everybody needs. I just think that it's the educational piece. I think that you got to refine your bottom line constantly, right? That is something that has to happen. But as far as I think the education piece of it should be on the top of your priority list, because educating people gets them off the fence. Educating people makes them feel willing to give you their money. If you don't educate them and then give them the values in the package, but they don't know the value of what's in the package, because you got to figure out how to talk them into it.
Yep.
Right? And really the best way to talk somebody into it is to educate them and let them sit on that. Because they already know somewhere that they want to eat better. They already know that there's better tasting food. There's already, to go back to the gritty thing, we all know we want to have a better shit in the woods, right? Yeah. But so it's just
that's a motivator.
It's just an educational piece that that I think is some of that difference.
Yeah,
that's what I think. And as far as marketing it, you said for yourself, crossing the boundary, or you've done most of it, in my opinion, crossing the boundaries out of the backcountry into the hunting realm. I think that's huge. I think that being on some of the podcasts you've been on is huge. I think that being at these events and listening and being open-minded and taking that in and going home and sitting down with the team and saying, this is what I heard, this is what I seen, this is what I know, this is, we're going to figure out this balance, and then, as far as delivering that, you're creating your own brand, so you are your own media, you're your own media marketing agent, right? And so what platforms do you feel serve you the best?
I mean, these ones are so easy, just like, that's where I think podcasting is so powerful, because you have people who, they just gobble this stuff up. It's super, it's easy to get your hands on.
Very accessible.
Right? Accessible. That's the word. And so that's where I was curious if you were like, pick a medium, because you can't be a master of all of them.
So I think that even for ourselves, we're in a growing state in that, and trying to figure out what's the best platform, either Instagram or Facebook, or how do you acquire an email list when you're a podcaster, or how
Sure.
Lots of these different things. I mean, but from the gurus that I listen to, and even from my good friend Mike, and he's always shoving Gary Vee at us all the time, huh, Kate? And he is. I mean, he has a ton of value in an email list. There's no doubt about it. But but is email really out of date at this point? Maybe not. But his big platform is Facebook, right? The investment in advertising in Facebook is extremely cheap right now, because no big markets are hitting that really hard. So, so that's a good platform. And it's been getting proven more that, younger people actually exist on Facebook, where we really kind of thought it was this, older group. But, from 25, 30 years old up, somewhere in there is where it's at. And, and like you say, some of these old dogs in here, man, they ain't going to change nothing in their routine,
that's
right?
Fine. That's fine.
And that's all right. But if you can capture the people that that are actually paying attention, and I do think that the Pulse of America on the younger end is starting to get it.
Awesome.
I think
That's
so.
Fantastic.
I think they're starting to eat better. I think they're starting to see that some. But it all starts with their parents. It all starts with, the educational piece to them too. But as far as a platform medium, I don't know. I mean, we push quite a bit through Instagram because it's hot, right? But as far as really getting your cost back, it seems the gurus tell you Facebook's where it's at, and I think compiling your email list is where it's at. I think that, like with what Wilderness Athlete's doing with the journal, I think that's extremely powerful.
Yeah,
it's awesome. It's educational, right? There's adventure in it. There's this and that. There's it's a lot of good things. Beyond the Kill, they're doing their publication, which is killer, and I think that engaging and giving value back for being accepted into their world, you being accepted into the consumer's world is huge. And, for me, I think that's where I think I'd be at. I mean, I don't know. I'm getting ready to talk with Santino here in a few minutes, and he's a media, marketing guy. you might take a chance to sit down and talk to him, right? Because a lot of these guys went digital and it's not really going as fast as they thought, and and TV's still hanging on. And then you can talk to Chris, and he says, Western Hunter sells more print magazines than they do digital. And when everybody thought the trend was leaving print's dead, TV's dead, scheduled programming's dead. You can watch it when you want, get it when you want, read it where you want on any little device, and all these different things. It's, I don't know.
No, there's still novelty in print.
It's so in this transition, I think, still. So, I don't know.
No, I love hearing this stuff because that is the easiest thing for me to do, is to just give that information to people, and the people who are receptive to it, they pick it up and they run with it, and they're so grateful for it. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's where just being authentic in your message, then it makes it really easy. It doesn't matter what platform you work with, so long as you're delivering a consistent, authentic message, people are going to hear it.
Yeah, and consistent. Mm-hmm. Consistent. It all goes all the way from the kitchen all the way to where you're putting it on every platform. I mean, consistency is where it's at, I think, all the way through.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see where you go in your health and fitness journey.
Hey, it's a work in progress.
That's cool. What's every day. Can I ask what the one thing is that's made the biggest difference?
The biggest, what do you mean, as far as food? Mm-hmm. The biggest food that's made the biggest difference? Well, the sugar. Sugar's cancer, man. Eliminating sugar is the biggest thing. Yep.
All forms.
And number 2 right behind it is beer.
I know. I was going to say, don't take my red wine from me.
I could just eat normal, and I could eliminate sugar, and I could eliminate beer or alcohol, period, and I can shed 12 pounds just like that.
Yep.
Just like that, without even exercising. That tells you that those are problems.
Totally.
Big time problems in my book. So the biggest food change for me, the hardest one, sugar. The biggest one, sugar. I mean, in my opinion, I think that refined sugar is the cancer of the world. And I think it's more addictive than drugs. I think it's more addictive than alcohol. I think it's more addictive than anything on this planet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Personally, I do.
That's what I was going to say, is that I think the biggest thing people could pay attention to that's going to make the biggest difference is watching their blood sugar. And just being aware of how different foods impact your blood sugar levels and insulin, and that's the thing that I think will carry people for a lifetime. If you can manage your blood sugar.
I really want to get into that in-depth part of that in my life. I would love for someone to just take my blood and analyze this and analyze that. I just don't know where to start. I don't know who to hook up with to where they can say, look, you know what? You can't eat potatoes, man.
Sure.
You can't. Your blood type or you know what I mean? I mean, there's science behind all this stuff, right? And but I don't know what I should be taking more of or less of, and what time of day and all that. I mean, that stuff intrigues the shit out of me, but I just don't know where to start.
Have you read Wired to Eat by Rob Wolf? It only came out recently. Rob Wolf is the man. When I knew I wanted to be a nutritionist, I went to one of his seminars in Hawaii, and I watched him give this full-day seminar, and I was like, I want to do that. And before I knew it, I was doing that. I was getting in front of CrossFit gyms and giving these lectures and loving it. But he just recently came out with a book called Wired to Eat, and it actually has a 7-day carb test in there. And I think you probably have to use a glucose monitor, but that would be like a phenomenal place to start. That would be cheap and easy and quick and dirty, and you would very quickly find out
I'm on it.
The difference between potatoes and lentils and white bread and all that stuff.
I'm on it. I'll get it. I'll order it up, and I'll get it, and I'll do it because I'm intrigued because I know I'm not anywhere close to my full potential, and it's because of what I'm eating and because of my gut health. And I know that's where it has to start. I mean, I can go lift all I want. I can make a box and a sandbag my best friends. but if I'm not eating right and if I'm not starting at the very bottom, of the fuel I'm putting in myself, then I'm working harder, not smarter.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you get to 46, you'll know far too well what I'm talking about, what that means.
Oh,
not that you don't already, but the older you get, the harder it gets. That's for sure. But,
yeah.
Anything? Any questions? Anything else you want
I
to
know,
throw
I feel like
out?
I'm asking you all the questions. I'm sorry.
Hey, no, this is a conversation. This is supposed to be a two-way street. You know, far too often you get people that sit down with you and they want you to ask, lead, and it's like, you know, look, this is supposed to be a conversation. We all have questions. We all have comments. We all have what we're good at. We all have knowledge of stuff that we've learned, and the conversation's about sharing it both ways. So I always try to leave that open, but a lot of people don't. They're intimidated, like, no, this is your show. You tell me.
No, I was born to listen, so I love asking questions and hearing about people's experiences, especially for someone like you who you totally tricked me into the whole, I was a professional chef. Jeez.
Well, you know, how relevant it is to what you do or not. I mean, there's something there, and I don't know if I'd have anything to offer you in that realm of what you're doing. It's
a huge skill that I feel like, once again, I probably should have had before starting a food company, but that wasn't my emphasis. It was about how am I providing a balanced, healthy, high-quality meal, and then having someone like you with the skill of, like, this is how you balance these different flavors and spices would be so freaking helpful.
And there's some science and there's still plenty of science behind food that I have yet to even, you know, retain. Well, thanks so much for coming on. It's really a pleasure to meet you. It's really cool through some of these shows how it's coming full circle for me and people who I've been stalking on Instagram, right, and following their journeys and stuff like that. It's super cool.
Yeah,
really
this is a wonderful show, and everyone's just so. You said it earlier. The hunting community definitely welcomed me with open arms.
And you're not a hunter, right?
No, I've gone on hunting trips with my boyfriend Brad. We got a caribou a couple years ago. We got a deer a couple years ago, and this will be the year that I get my first animal. We went on a mountain goat hunt this year with our pack rafts, and you know, I go because I want to like sit in the tent and eat snacks and all that stuff. But when we were looking for mountain goats, there was a ton of black bears,
right? And
that was kind of the moment where it clicked for me of like, I could actually do this,
right?
Like I could actually get one of those. So I would. I think the next time I see you, I will have gotten an animal, and I'm just going to be beaming. I'll be so excited to tell you about it.
I'll have to cold ship you some of my breakfast sausage, my bear breakfast sausage. I make a fresh ginger and sage breakfast sausage out of bear, and it's
awesome.
Killer. And of course, I totally stole Stephen Ranella's brat recipe. So
that's great. That's great
because it's proven and it's awesome, and I love it. So. Anyway, thanks so much for being on. I appreciate it. Any shout-outs for anybody?
Everybody. You know, the Wilderness Athlete people, Adam from the Journal, I wouldn't be here without him, and the Train to Hunt guys, and our buddies at Silverline Films. Like, we could go on and on and on. Right. Everybody in this community has been overly generous towards me, so I hope to pay it back.
And how can people find you?
HeathersChoice.com, Instagram, Heather's Choice. Hashtag Heather's Choice is really fun to look at because you can see what our customers are up to. I love that. And we're also on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. But yeah, drop us a line at HeathersChoice.com and say hi.
Sounds killer. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Coming to you from the Sheep Show. I couldn't thank Heather enough for being on the show, and I can't wait to get more involved. And it sounds like we got a lot in common, so it'd be kind of cool to see where our future goes. But in the meantime, go check her out. Thank you very much for being a part of the show, giving us a listen. Give us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Thanks so much. Bye.